If you're using paper for more than your butt, you're going to get wiped out. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, Ben here from JobNimbus with the Building Business channel, and I've got Brad with us. Brad is one of the first employees of JobNimbus. He's also my brother. Welcome.
Full disclosure.
Yes. Brad and I, when we first were working on JobNimbus, we saw a lot of trucks full of paper. We saw a lot of photos of offices just stacked up with paper. It's been changing. We've seen a lot more things going digital. Why is it important to try to move away from paper?
Sure. So, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons that go into this. I mean, technology has brought in so many advancements to just our daily lives. I mean, everyone's got a smartphone these days, and we have so much enablement now. There's things that have been brought into the work sector that can do the same kinds of things for us. If we have a piece of paper, like customer calls in, we get their phone number, we write it down on a piece of paper, it is just on that piece of paper, and it's on somebody's desk, and it can get buried underneath a whole bunch of other papers.
I've seen a lot of Post-it notes with leads on them.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, when you see, like, you go into their office and they've got their monitor there, and it's just full of Post-it notes around it, and you don't know which one, like when it was created, or who wrote it and why. The idea of going paperless is that everything is in one single place that everyone can get access to. And there's a whole bunch of things like an audit trail. You can see who created that note, when did they do that, and sometimes why. You get a lot better idea of why that happened, and so you can then make actions on it and actually do tasks or things like that so that nothing slips through the cracks.
It's so hard to know if a lead got followed up on when somebody called in and they wrote down the lead on a sticky note and they gave it to the sales rep's desk or something like that. You have no idea if that ever got followed up on. And
Exactly.
You don't even have a record of that information besides that Post-it note.
Right, and if there's one, how many more are there? I mean, you can imagine just if you've lost one lead because of one Post-it note, how many other notes are there buried somewhere or lost in a trash can that you had no visibility over? If everything is put into an electronic system like a CRM, customer relationship management software, then you know how many were brought in, how many moved to the next stage, how many moved to the next, and you can actually get so much more visibility on your pipeline from that just alone, making sure that you're tracking these things in that single system.
Another common thing we saw a lot of times, and we still see today, is people using sort of a magnet board or a whiteboard, and they'll have all the jobs up there with like magnet cards or sticky notes or just markers of keeping track of where every job is at and what stage it's on in the process.
Yeah, and that's actually a great system. I mean, you can kind of go all the way back to like Toyota and how they would come up with their Kanban boards and be able to make a more efficient system. So it's great that they're taking that next step of having that visual, that visual whiteboard there. The only problem is having it in one single place on one whiteboard in the office makes a lot of work for the office people who have to then disseminate that information out to everybody else. They are the single person who needs to make sure that everyone else knows what they need to do and when. So if you put that into a system that has a visualization element to it, where you can see that board and everyone can log into it and see their own board assigned, the stuff that is assigned to them, that's where it becomes really powerful and starts to really crank your engine.
If you're starting, you're all on paper and you're starting to move to digital and you know you need to do it, what's one of the best ways that you could get started?
So here's a good example. I mean, when you're trying to interface with the customer, let's say that you're building a house or doing a roofing job, and the customer comes up and tries to talk to you about something specific that they'd like to see within the build. I've seen it before where a contractor will just pick up a scrap piece of wood or something like that and write the note there and then just leave it back on the floor. And then you can go back the next day or 2 days later and that scrap of wood is still there, and who knows if that ever got done. Like
it didn't.
Nothing ever happened, right?
Yeah.
And how does that look then for the contractor? I mean, in terms of the customer perception, they're looking at this contractor and now their level of confidence has gone way down because they can't trust that the contractor will do what they're asking and making sure that they're getting the product that they are hoping for.
So that's something we haven't really talked about. Like we talked about some of the drawbacks of paper. You can't get access to it. If you're not in the office, you can't see it. There's no accountability. But one of the things that really comes across to me in what you just said is you don't look professional if you're not, if you're using paper still. It just doesn't look legit anymore. Yeah. Customers expect you to be more digital.
That's exactly right. And that's kind of, I mean, when you look at the overall industry trends, you're seeing how much digital is encroaching on our lives. If you aren't going digital and if you aren't doing these things, if you aren't going digital, then your competition is. So you will be left behind, and your competition will be the ones who are the most organized, who are the most efficient, who are the most professional. Those are the ones that your customers will go to when they need a new job instead of you, because they see that from how well you run your business.
Yeah, it's crazy. I had some work done on my house about 6 months ago, and I called up a bunch of contractors. I think we left 10 messages with different companies to ask for bids. We had 2 call us back. 2. You know, yeah. I'm sure the rest either didn't even write it down on a Post-it note, or it was a Post-it note somewhere that nobody followed up on. And everybody's really busy right now. So that, to me, that looks really bad. I would never work with a company like that, right?
Yeah.
That's the perception that's going to come across to your customers when you're running paper still.
That's exactly right. And there you go. You're losing jobs, potential jobs that you could have had because you are making things slip through the cracks by the way you're running your business. I had the same kind of experience where I was trying to just get an extra length of fence that we needed for a specific job. I called 3 contractors and only one of them got back to me. The good thing is that one was even more ahead of the game, where they actually started sending me text messages and giving me their estimate right over there over a text message. And I had full access to it. I could see it. I could even sign and agree to it right there over my smartphone. It was fantastic.
So you had that experience. Did you want to go look for anybody else?
No, I had no reason to. The other 2, they lost their chance.
Yeah. So that was just a closed deal right there. In your mind, that's who I wanted to work with.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to talk about mobile for a second, because when we first were working on JobNimbus, mobile apps weren't really anywhere like they are now, and certainly smartphones weren't what they are now. Seems like everybody is moving much more towards using everything on their phone. How does that play into this paperless?
Oh, it's a huge piece of it. I mean, I was just looking at a statistic that Google searches, out of all of the Google searches that are happening right now, 83% of them are happening on mobile.
Oh!
So it's huge. Whoa. Yeah, it's a huge statistic. And it's something that just bleeds into everything else that we do. Your salespeople and your office people, they're all a lot more used to using their mobile devices these days. And so having a mobile element and being able to, let's say, well, create an estimate right there on a tablet or a smartphone even, create the estimate right there in front of the customer, and you can give them the instant pricing. You can give them the pricing options right there. Sometimes you can do a financing option right there at the doorstep.
Yep.
And think about how well that sells. I mean, your opportunity for a sale goes way down once you close the door, once you leave that homeowner's house and you let them make a different decision while you're gone. If you can close the sale right there with the tools in your hand and in your pocket, that's going to make the big difference for you.
I love it. So, kind of a recap here. If you don't go paperless, you're not going to look as professional. So be more professional, go more digital, right?
Absolutely.
The way to get started is to look at at least one of the things you're doing paper with right now that you could start doing digitally tomorrow. Could be a form, could be taking your process and putting it onto an app or something like that. Do something to get yourself the foot in the door there. You don't have to switch everything over at once.
Right.
And then once you have that digital solution, make sure it has a mobile component to it, because
Absolutely.
That's where the action is now.
Exactly. That's where most of your activity is going to start happening, and that's where you enable your people out in the field to have the most power to make those sales, to give a better customer experience, and close out those jobs a lot faster.
Great. Thanks, Brad. So I'd love to hear comments below on challenges, struggles that you're having with paper right now. Is anybody still using paper? I bet a lot of you are. If you tried to move to a digital platform and it didn't work out, what were some of the problems? Was it hard to train your people? Comment below. We'd love to hear the ideas.